The session would be on storytelling for games and gameplay experience. So the most important thing about games and gameplay is that it personalizes the immersive storytelling experiences within that game itself. So that's what's so powerful about a game and stories you can tell through games. So let's talk about games and stories to start with. So storytelling for games obviously is all about creating a narrative, okay, that can take our players into a virtual world and awaken their imagination, immersing them in the kind of experience that only video games can offer. So that's what is the power of video games, that it can take you to a virtual world, awaken your imagination, and immerse you into a kind of an experience uh, which is only uh, kind of experienced in a video game. So stories for video games uh, is something that video games can tell stories just like books, movies, or plays. Stories are the one of the most kind of powerful things human beings can communicate. The power of the video game medium is actually lies in one extra thing, which other mediums obviously rarely have. It's the potential of interactivity. That is what is the power of the video game medium itself. The enormous potential of interactivity. Okay. This potential is far from being fully known, understood, and accepted at large. So we're still looking at how storytelling for games is going to be now it's still evolving. It's still not accepted at large uh, in terms of the way we can tell stories through games. Why? Because video games were not available to the masses before 1970s and were not used as a form of storytelling during that time. In the 1980s and the 90s, there were complex stories, deep characters, and profound themes that appeared in video games. So that is the time when things evolved and which we are seeing it till date. Many people still during that time thought video games were just entertainment for kids and teenagers. Some players, especially casual gamers, did not consider themselves as gamers. Even till date, people who play poker, Ludo, or Candy Crush, they don't think themselves as gamers. Gamers, they feel people who play on kind of computers or PS4s, consoles are the gamers. So over a period of time, games have become a part of our life and culture. And today, mostly everyone is familiar with video games as a modern form of storytelling. So that's about storytelling for games. So obviously there is something called a narrative. Okay, you must have, if you have played games, there is a profile in a gaming studio which can be a narrative manager or a narrative director, game narrative director kind of a thing. So what is a narrative as such? Narrative by definition is a spoken or written account of a connected event. A connected event is like a story. Okay. So, but it can be told now, as per definition, it can be spoken or written only. But that's not true. Narrative does not have to be necessarily spoken or written. Narrative can be told through still images or moving images as well. Still images in the form of photography or art, and moving images in the form of motion pictures, movies, and of course, video games. So there is a wrong belief that interactivity might change the basic rules of storytelling. If you introduce interactivity in storytelling, there's a wrong belief that it will change the basic rules of storytelling, which is not true. It does not change. Story is the goal regardless of how it is told. Okay. So the rules of a good story never change. Okay. Another thing, as a game designer, not all game designers are story writers. So if you want to be a story writer, you need to learn how to be one. So you need to read, play, watch, and study in terms of script writing and now how basically you write for games specifically. So not all game designers are kind of story writers. So if you want to become one, you need to learn the skills of writing for games. As a game designer, you should. It's really important to know how to take pieces of the narrative and recount them in a way that works with your game. Okay, a game designer's job is to make a story playable. Okay, that's how they work out. Not take pieces from the narrative or the story, they recount them in a way that works with your game. Kind of integrate gameplay experience along the way, and that's how gaming or game designers create an experience. So, do all games have a narrative? Uh, there are some games such as Tetris or puzzle games or quiz games where now games are unlikely. These games are unlikely to tell any kind of a story as such. But if you look at the other way, a good game generates stories when people play. So if you play a puzzle game or a Candy Crush or a Tetris, and you create and you kind of score well, so you have a story to tell to your friends. So a good game generates stories when people play. So here in this case, the story is told by the player who becomes the hero or the protagonist. A good game generates stories when people play it. So that's an important thing. Make sure that the game you're designing enables players to create different stories by making different choices. That's how you make it more interactive, engaging in terms of gameplay experience, in terms of making them connect to the game through your players, create an empathy. Okay. So coming to why are stories good for gamers? Some games are pretty abstract, such as Tetris, but some games are actually uh, you know, really good in terms of storytelling. Stories and games work very well together. Successful games have meaningful and rich stories and great characters. Stories create an emotional attachment with the player. So stories provide a structure. A structure, by the way I mean, is beginning, middle, end. So stories have a beginning, middle, end. That is the structure. And through which gameplay movements can be organized. Okay. It provides a motivation to play that transcends the gameplay. Okay. So players will naturally want to know more about the plot, the characters, and the game world. Okay, so that's how stories and gameplay are kind of connected together. Games are naturally played by people to learn, and so is the same with stories, because stories serve the same purpose of learning. So that is one of the reasons why stories are good for games, because it connects, it makes you learn, it makes you motivated, it makes you experience, uh, 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 make it more fun and entertaining for you while learning as well. So that's about storytelling for games. There are traditional narrative models, like in stories, you have the three-act story model, whereas there is another model, narrative model called monomyths, which is actually the hero's journey. Okay, that model has around 17 stages of the hero's journey. So these are traditional narrative models, which is used in terms of narrative in games. Okay, so when you design a narrative for a video game, like there is a linear narrative, there is a linear with extended space of action, and there is a modular narrative. So these are things which actually you understand and then kind of apply when you're designing a narrative for your game. So let's take the one of the best examples of a narrative for game is the Call of Duty series. Okay, so Call of Duty, obviously, uh, it's by published by Activision. Activision Blizzard is the parent company. Developed by Infinity Ward, and in 2003 it was powered by Quake 3. Okay, the kind of a game engine, which actually uh, today Quake 3 game engine is also called the ID Tech 3. It's popularly known earlier as the Quake 3 Arena engine, and it has been adopted by a lot of numerous games. Okay. Modern Warfare 2019, which is the latest kind of Call of Duty game, uses the IW 8.0 engine. Okay, and the next game, which is expected in next couple of months, the Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War 2020 uses Treyarch's engine. Treyarch is another company which develops the Black Ops series. Okay. So during its time, the ID Tech 3 or the Quake 3 Arena engine was very popular, and it competed with the Unreal Engine. Both engines were widely licensed around. As a game, Call of Duty is a first-person shooter game based on like ID Tech 3 and was released on October 29, 2003. So it's been, say, from 2003 to 2020, it's been around 17 years, and there are around 16 kind of published series of Call of Duty. And like I said, the 2003 it was developed by Infinity Ward, published by Activision. The game was simulate, obviously had simulation of the infantry combined arms warfare of the World War II series period, and it followed American and British paratroopers and the Red Army, the Russian army. So this was 2003 as such in terms of the first Call of Duty game, Call of Duty 1, if I can call it. And so this is so they had a lot of other series coming up. So 2003 we had Call of Duty, and Call of Duty had three parts in that. The campaign, which is the story mode, where you can play as a American soldier, British soldier, or the Soviet soldier, like Soviet soldier, soldier of the Red Army, and trying to defeat the Axis powers, obviously the Allied forces as such. Each missions are they obviously you become the character and you go on missions as such. Each mission had series of objectives that had to be completed before moving on to the next mission. So every Call of Duty has different missions as such. There were two key features to Call of Duty that were not in other Call of Duty games. One of them was that you could not regenerate health, and you had to manually heal with the first aid kit found on the map. The other unique feature in the first Call of Duty was that players could save at any point throughout the campaign or the story mode, regardless of where they are. And in the following Call of Duty games, players have to reach a checkpoint to save their progress. So that's what was unique about the first Call of Duty. Then you had in 2004, Infinity Ward published another Call of Duty called Finest Star, and then we had 2005, we had Infinity Ward kind of developing Call of Duty 2. It was obviously published by Activision itself and set in World War II period, and offered a series of new missions from different allied soldiers. A lot of features were there, key components to this day. And then we had Call of Duty 3, which was also kind of developed by Infinity Ward in 2006. And so this in the campaign, the player uses obviously chooses American, British, and Canadian or Polish soldiers during a single player campaign, and it had 14 missions in them. As so different missions were different kind of challenges or obstacles. Set in a western front of World War II, it obviously the period was 1944 and contained missions specific to four major Allied campaigns in the Battle of Normandy. The player campaign was open-ended, meaning that the players could complete any mission they want at any given moment. So this was like then we had in 2007 we had the Call of Duty Roads to Victory, which was another kind of developed by Infinity Ward. In 2007 is when we had Infinity Ward come up with Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. So this was the first of a kind thing where they moved on from World War II to the modern day setting. So it was not set in World War II era. It was rather a modern day kind of a period. And the game won the the Game of the Year award in 2007. It was the highest selling game that year. Okay, for a campaign, the story takes place in 2011, where a radical leader has executed the president of an unnamed country in the Middle East, and accordingly, this radical leader was none other than the villain, the antagonist. As such, uh, he the conflicts were like seen from the perspective of the US forces and British SAS Commando Force, and the various locations were UK, Middle East, Azerbaijan, Russia, and Ukraine. So this all had a multiplayer portion of the game and game modes, uh, different levels, additional weapons, attachments, camouflages. The Call of Duty 4 featured modern equipment and something very interesting, which was specific exclusive to multiplayer, was the kill streaks. So if you kill several enemies without dying, you get a kind of a set, including airstrikes or helicopter support to help your team. So that was in Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. In 2008, you had Treyarch. Treyarch was similar to Infinity War. They came up with something called World at War. Treyarch was another kind of company who developed the Call of Duty series, published by Activision. And this obviously was a game which returned to the series to World War II again, and was the first installment of the Black Ops series. So this was the first game in the series which obviously introduced the game mode Zombies. And so Zombies, for your information, is a survival game mode where a group of 4 players must battle against a wave of zombies that only increase after each round, and the game mode has no level caps. So a player plays until he kind of dies to the zombies. The narrative for the campaign focused on the Pacific and the Eastern Front theaters of World War II, involving US, Japan, Soviet Union, and the Nazis Germany. It was told from a perspective of Marine Raider Private C. Miller and Red Army soldier Private Dmitry Petrenko, and is based on several historical battles in World War II. So after 2008 World at War came the Modern Warfare 2. Obviously, again, the Modern Warfare was developed by Infinity Ward, and the Black Ops was developed by Treyarch. So that was the difference. So in 2009, you had the Modern Warfare 2 coming, which was a continuation of the original Modern Warfare in 2007, uh, and featured the same characters as in the campaign. The campaign is actually the story mode that's where the story telling happens. So the campaign focused on the hunt of Viktor Makarov, the head of the Russian Nationalist Party. The game's main playable characters were Sergeant Gary Roach Sanderson of the 141 and Private James Ramirez of the Army Rangers, with Captain Soap McTavish becoming playable later in the campaign. In the latest Modern Warfare, we have Captain Soap McTavish coming back. So the multiplayer side of the Modern Warfare 2 is considered to be revolutionary for the Call of Duty series, as it implemented a lot of new features to the series, which remain still date in the new versions as well. Each game type had an objective that required different strategies to complete, and if the player kills 3 or more players in a row without dying, they achieve a kill streak. So all this was part of the 2009 Modern Warfare 2. Then we had 2010 the Black Ops from Treyarch. They developed it with Activision and released in 2010. The game was a sequel to World at War. Like I said, it was uh, started in 2008. 2010 was the Black Ops series. The game included many improved multiplayer features from Modern Warfare 2 and brought back the popular Nazi zombies mode from World War II. So that became popular. So zombie mode is no more in the latest one, but it was pretty popular during this time. In 2011, you had the Modern Warfare 3, again back to Infinity Ward, who were kind of developing this series, Modern Warfare. And but this was kind of Modern Warfare 3 was developed along with another developer called Sledgehammer Games. These two companies worked side by side to release the third installment of Modern Warfare, and they built off the success of the Modern Warfare 2. They did not change the game too much because Modern Warfare 2 was pretty popular. The game's campaign or the story mode follows the Modern Warfare 2 and begins right after the events of its final mission. Similar to Modern Warfare 2, it was centered around the Task Force 141, which contained the main protagonist, Captain Price, John Price of the SAS. And Captain Price obviously comes back in the 2019 Modern Warfare. And so he was the one who kind of created this task for 141 along with Soap, McTavish, and Yuri, one of the playable characters. So in multiplayer mode, Modern Warfare 3 switched from kill streak rewards to point streak rewards. So to get your streaks, you must obtain a certain amount of points in one life without dying, which can be obtained by killing the enemy or completing a part of the objective. So point streak of rewards were similar to what kill streak rewards were. So this was something new in terms of Modern Warfare 3. Then in 2012, we came back to the second part of Black Ops, uh, developed by Treyarch, and it was a continuation to the first part. In terms of the game's campaign or the story mode, uh, it is set in the late 1980s and 2025. So in the 80s, the player switches control between Alex and Frank Woods. These are the main characters from Black Ops. While in 2025, the player assumes control of Alex Mason's son, David Borth. Obviously, uh, these were campaign features, non-linear gameplay, and multiple endings. So this was Black Ops as such, Black Ops 2. Then we had Call of Duty Ghosts, which was released in 2013, made by Infinity Ward. It was sixth Call of Duty game, and the game begins with its own story in the campaign mode while continuing from the success of the multiplayer from previous games. So in the Ghost campaign, the story is mostly told through the eyes of a single character, Logan Walker, and players assume the role of Logan. So you play like as Logan for most of the game, with several other playable characters, including the astronaut specialist named Baker, Sergeant Thompson, and members of the Icarus and Logan's father, Elias Walker. So multiplayer was the main draw for Ghosts and receives so amazing reviews in than the campaign mode. So the multiplayer mode in Ghosts featured uh, changes from that of the previous Call of Duty games. Some new mechanics were added to it. Maps in the games were altered, could have been altered and destroyed. So there were different maps as such which were used in the Ghost series. Then came in 2014, the Sledgehammer uh, was part of the Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, and This 11th Call of Duty took the, obviously, not the traditional way, but the advanced warfare. So there were new mechanics added to player movements. Now they could fly and or kind of uh, move around. Different advanced movement were added to the campaign, which was set in the future era. It was set in 2050s, which followed Jack Mitchell of the United States Marine Corps and his involvement with Atlas, a private military corporation, which sold its services to the highest bidder. So that was kind of advanced warfare. So 2014, 15, and 16 actually used this advanced movement in characters. 2015 had Treyarch's, again Black Ops 3, and 2016 had Infinity Ward come up with Infinite Warfare as such. So in Call of Duty Black Ops 3, obviously it took place in 2065, 40 years after the story in Black Ops 2, and obviously story followed a group of Black Ops soldiers, and 4 players could play. There was a co-op gameplay as well, allowing for bigger, more open level design and cooperative teamwork, which is there in the latest Modern Warfare 2019 as well. So the multiplayer in Black Ops 3 introduced a new momentum-based movement system. So you could actually wear thruster packs, and player could boost up in the air and perform wall running and sliding and all that. So till 2016, they used this advanced movement, but the dedicated players did not like this kind of experience or gameplay, and so they changed back in 2017 with Call of Duty World War II, and which was released in 2017, again developed by Sledgehammer Games. So it returned back to the World War II era, and similar to some of the original Call of Duty games in the series. So this game removed the advanced movement, and that was the which were there in the last 3 Call of Duty games, and returned to what is being called as the boots on the ground playstyle. So the campaign in 2017 Call of Duty World War II actually was set in Western Front, Eastern Front, as well as Africa during World War II, and it's the first title since the original game to not feature the health generation in the campaign. Instead, players would find health packs scattered throughout the levels and rely on their medics squad mate to provide the health packs to kind of regenerate. So this was 2017 in terms of the World War II. Then came the 4th series of Black Ops, by obviously again developed by Treyarch, and this was the 6th game released by Treyarch. It was the first game in the series which did not feature a single player mode. It only had multiplayer in Call of Duty Black Ops 4. It obviously came back with zombies and battle royale mode, which was brand new to Call of Duty. So 2018, the battle royale mode was introduced to the game. So the Black Ops 4 multiplayer feature, there was a return of specialists with special abilities and traits. So the game featured a total of 10 specialists, 6 of which were characters which were coming back from Black Ops 3, while other 4 were new additions. So unlike Black Ops 3, Black Ops 4 allowed only 2 unique specialists per team to emphasize the role of each character. Coming back to 2019, the latest Call of Duty Modern Warfare, the Infinity, developed by Infinity Ward as such, and published by Activision. Here, obviously, you have these 4 different modes. You have the campaign, which is the story mode. You have the kind of a war zone, which is a free game, and you had co-op as well as multiplayer. So these are 4 different modes in the latest 2019, and so the story of 2019 is, if I can briefly tell you, is about uh, the CIA officer, which is Alex, and British SAS forces, along with Captain John Price. They're teaming up with rebels, which is where these 2 characters, Farah Karim, as well as her brother Hadir Karim, based in a country called Uzbekistan. So they team up with these 2 rebel uh, and combat together against the Russian forces who have invaded Uzbekistan. So the game's special ops mode features co-op play missions that follows the campaign story. So there is the main antagonist or the villain who's called the Wolf. So at the end of the campaign or the story mode, you kill the wolf and then uh, go on to play the co-op, which is a continuation of the campaign. And so you are introduced to another villain at the end of it, which is interesting as in storytelling as such. So you have different mini maps, you have different kill streaks in terms of playing the game itself. So all that is there are different 14 missions in Modern Warfare 2019, from starting with Fog of War, then is the attack on Piccadilly, so embedded, proxy war, clean house. So there are around 14 of them. There are kill streaks during in the multiplayer mode, wherein if you kill 4 enemies without losing your life, you get a UAV, the unmanned aerial vehicle. Or if you kill 5, you get a cluster strike or a cruise missile. All these are kill streaks, which are kind of rewards given in terms of your objectives, in terms of number of kills without dying. So so this was more on the Infinity Ward as such. So with 17-year history of Call of Duty series, okay, uh, there were like 16 different gaming games made over a period of time. So the difference between Call of Duty 4, which was the first Modern Warfare in 2007, and after 12 years, the new Modern Warfare. So the first series made an incredible impression on fans. That is why they've continued with this. Infinity Ward has made a lot of money for themselves as well as Activision. And Call of Duty, the latest one, Modern Warfare 2019, was a reboot as such. It was not a kind of a remaster, prequel, remake, or sequel. And here, in terms of storytelling, the characters in the Modern Warfare were not kind of clear-cut good guys or bad guys. They were like they had these gray areas, so they were not shown as good guys or bad guys, because the in terms of kind of a gameplay experience, they wanted everybody to be the hero of their own story. Okay, In terms of Modern Warfare 2019, it obviously was different because it was based on today's world, and where clandestine operations are conducted in the middle of the night in city centers. There were new gameplay experiences introduced which were never there in any Call of the Duty games earlier. You were actually you played as an underdog. You made improvised weapons. Okay, you obviously have a uh, kind of access to create your own weapon if you want to make a heavier one, if you want to make a lighter one. You can add a lot of skins and all that. And as and when you play more with experience, you get a lot of rewards, skins, and kind of freewares as well. Finally, you use the terrain and your knowledge of your environment to ambush your enemy. So this was something new in terms of storytelling and gameplay in the new Modern Warfare 2019. Most importantly, the story is critical. You cannot separate this in terms of gameplay experience. And new experiences, the obviously from a gameplay experience, you become the character of inside the game. You actually walk in their shoes. You grow, evolve, inhabit them, and kind of relate to them, empathize with them, make critical decisions as the character themselves, and overcome obstacles. So it is very important that in terms of gameplay that the player should feel that stakes of finishing their mission is as important to them as to their game character. Because if that is not the case, then you will not kind of empathize or kind of feel it important to play that game. Okay. So just cool gameplay is not enough. You need to have meaningful characters and a story associated to it. If there are no stakes involved, it feels like there is no reason for you to accomplish your goals. So you develop a story and build those stakes, which are really important for a player to feel uh, some a connect with the game and amazing gameplay experience. In Modern Warfare 2019, there were a lot of, in terms of storytelling, a lot of uh, performance capture was introduced. There were subtle facial expressions, like someone's eyes darting to one side if they're lying or not telling the truth, which gave additional layer of storytelling on top of dialogue. So the studio narrative director Taylor Kurosaki is, and as well as the campaign gameplay director Jacob Minkoff. So both were involved in terms of designing the gameplay as well as storytelling in the campaign mode. So all this was important in terms of the game play and storytelling for games itself. Another thing which I wanted to add here was that uh, when you design your narrative for video games, there is a process of review and you read it, you review it, and you analyze it before you kind of finalize your narrative or the story for video games. So you need to understand now how do you connect your story in terms of or making it more playable, uh, introduce now features like uh, game interactivity, make them empathize with the characters, have missions, more interesting missions, make it more entertaining and valuable for the player to play that game and achieve the missions or objectives. So that is important when you're kind of creating a storytelling in your games, and obviously gameplay experience adds up in terms of whatever interactivity or missions or kill streaks or uh, uh, kind of, because in the game itself there are these campaign mode, specifically when Farah is actually, you play as Alex in the campaign mode, and you're Alex and Farah is leading you to in one of the missions to inside Uzbekistan as a civilian, and you need to kind of uh, put explosive and blow up the helicopters. And here there is a lot of AI and interactivity, and these Farah is guiding you in the campaign mode where she's telling you hide or take a left or take a right. And if you don't do that, don't go as per directions, then you actually get killed, and then you start again, you regenerate or you reboot. So that this is something new in Modern Warfare 2019 as well, wherein uh, in earlier ones you used to have Captain Price telling you, be careful in the corners and all that. Here you now know that it is critical to uh, be actually uh, taking those instructions very seriously, and following in the instructions is going to save your life. So all that is part of the storytelling in games in terms of the Call of Duty series, whether it's the Black Ops or whether it's Modern Warfare. We are going to see some very amazing series in terms of Black Ops Cold War in November, I guess. November, December is getting released, and it is released in the alpha mode and the beta mode in the coming days, and then finally released for uh, PlayStation 4 specifically, and going on to other platforms. So these are the main characters of Modern Warfare or Call of Duty series. You have Captain John Price, who's the captain of the British 22nd SAS, or the Special Air Services Regiment. And so Captain Price has actually joined the infantry at the age of 16. He served in the British Army for 18 years. He's one of the youngest cadets to ever graduate the Royal Military Academy as commissioned officers. He was badged as the member of the SAS, which is the Special Air Services. He has a call sign of Bravo 6, and was promoted to captain in 2011. So there is a kind of a description of each characters in terms of story, and there's a backstory to it, and how they behave, why they behave. He's obviously unofficial mission to capture or kill high value targets. So he is called when there is a specific special mission. Uh, Coming to the next kind of character is Sergeant Kyle Garrick, also known as Gaz. He's the sergeant in the Special Air Services Regiment. He enlisted in the British Army in 2014 in Her Majesty's Elite SAS, and he has been on different missions in Northern Ireland, Bosnia, Turkey, Iraq, Afghanistan, and Syria, where he hunted terrorists as such. You have Nikolai, another kind of character. Then you have Farah, who's a leader of the Uzbekistan Liberation Force. which is all called the ULF. So Farah is actually the founding member and commander of ULF and has been battling foreign occupation since 2010, which is Russian forces. She is renowned not only for leading the resistance, but also kind of has been very protective to combat terror groups like Al-Qatala. So Al-Qatala is a terrorist organization which fights the Russian. So she is the one who's trying to work out between Russian forces, fight both of them, the Russian forces as well as Al-Qatala. And as a girl, she lost her father, and with her brother Hadir Karim, they both were caught when they were in the teens. The father was murdered by the General Barkov's rogue forces. General Barkov is part of the rogue forces of Russia, and she obviously takes a help, kind of in Modern Warfare 2019, helps Alex in terms of both together fight the forces, Russian forces and Al-Qatala, and they try to figure out this chlorine gas which has been stolen and will be used in Uzbekistan as well as maybe in Europe and UK as well. So they're in Piccadilly. They actually in one of the missions they actually attack uh, the Al-Qatala group attacks the SAS. So that's one of the missions as such, where Captain Price comes and saves Garrick's uh, team. And coming to the next character, which is Farah's brother Hadir Ahmed Karim. He is the lieutenant and reports directly to his older sister Farah. He is a fighter in Uzbekistan's liberation forces and serves as a combat lieutenant. His father was a professor who was murdered by the rogue forces of General Barkov. Mother was a civil servant and for a district in Uzbekistan. He differs in terms of philosophically with his sister because he has a different opinion about Al-Qatala as well as Russian forces, and his sister is somebody who wants to move on, make sure that the civilian population is not kind of hurt, and so she is different than her brother. Hadir is the one actually in the later we find out that Hadir is the one who kind of who's the one who steals the chlorine gas earlier, and so Khaled Al Saad is one of the kind of leader of the military faction, and he is the #1 enemy for the US Marine Forces, and later becomes the target of the SAS. So after the Wolf, who was the villain, dies in the campaign mode, Khaled becomes the leader of the villains, and so you have Alex. When you play the game as Alex, most of the campaign mode, and Alex is known as Echo 31. He's one of the protagonists in the Modern Warfare series, and one of the playable characters in this Modern Warfare 2019. Alex is a CIA officer who joins Farah's rebel group to stop Al-Qatala and to learn who stole the Russian gas from his failed operation. Actually, to give you a backstory, Zelki, Alex was sent by Farrell to because they find out that there is this chlorine gas being moved for specifically for some rogue operation, and when Alex and his team kind of get into an unknown country where they find out that it's been already kind of protected by some terrorist organization. They fight them in the campaign mode, the fog of war. That is the first kind of mission, and they find out that actually they were Russian forces. So they, when they were moving out with the chlorine gas to a safer place, they were attacked by terrorists, which were none other than Farah's brother, which was later learned that Farah's brother was the one who kind of. So with Farah and Alex together, they were looking for the chlorine gas and making sure that nobody gets hurt. And that's when they kill the wolf, who's the main founder of Al Qatala. And that's when Khalid Al Saad becomes the leader of Al Qatala as such, and becomes uh, the villain of this. So all these, there's another character called Nikolai in this game who had a code name Nikolai, uh, of a former soldier. He's a former soldier of Russian army. He was accused of, uh, but he was never. It was never proven of being an informant against the ultra nationalist. So Nikolai is an intelligent asset to MI6, the British intelligence, and the confidential source of the British SAS. So Captain Price is the one, whenever he needs help, he calls Nikolai. So for this mission, Captain Price uh, uh, kind of took a lot of intel from Nikolai, because Nikolai has a lot of sources across these regions, these cities as such. So So this was more on the Call of Duty Modern Warfare. You will see uh, there's a new trailer for the Black Ops Cold War already released, with amazing gameplay experiences, new features, more photorealistic kind of game, uh, much realistic maps as such, a lot of different weaponry you can use. So all these together is telling a story in terms of different missions, different resources. There's a backstory to each character as such, and a very amazing gameplay experience for all of us who have played the Call of Duty game. So this is from my side in terms of the characters, the story, the gameplay. You have the campaign mode, which is the story mode. You have different missions. You have, besides the campaign mode, you have the co-op mode where you can play with your friends together. There is a war zone, which is free, which got released in, I think, March as well, for PC, and you have the multiplayer mode as well. So wherein you have kill streaks and a lot of stuff in terms of having an amazing game experience or gameplay experience. So this was more on the gaming part, the personalization of an immersive storytelling experiences through an example or case study of Call of Duty as such.